There are over 150 different medical schools in the United States alone, and even more so when you include the rest of the world. If you're anything like me, one, that's too many options, and two, reading about them on paper just isn't enough. So with this series, I want to interview different students at different medical schools in order to give you more than just words on a piece of paper to go by. Alright YouTube, it's your favorite medical student Henson, and we are back for another amazing episode of Med Schools Around the World. To everyone who's been keeping up with the channel, thank y'all. I love the support. I appreciate every single one of you guys. To every single one of you who are new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn that like button blue for me. Now today, we are headed to Washington D.C. to Georgetown University School of Medicine, where second-year medical student Adaora is going to be telling us all about her experience there.
Hi everyone, my name is Adaora and I'm a second year medical student at Georgetown University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C. I went to undergrad at the University of Miami in Miami, Florida. So ultimately, I picked my school because financial aid was a huge factor for me when choosing what medical school I wanted to go to, and the fact that I was able to get a full tuition scholarship at Georgetown pretty much convinced me that that was the school for me, and that was the school that valued me the most because they did give me the most money. So our preclinical curriculum is 1.5 years long. So basically I'm in my second year and we're almost halfway done. I'm in my last block. So that means I take STEP in February instead of over the summer, which would typically be the case in a traditional curriculum. And then right after that, we start rotation. So I think the whole point in doing the 1.5 year curriculum is really just to get that hands-on hospital experience way earlier and just cut out all the extra fluff that they would normally put in the preclinical curriculum. So yeah, we are pass-fail, meaning that we take our exams and what shows up on our transcript, as long as you score above 70, it's either going to be a pass or fail on the transcript. There's not going to be an exact letter grade. You will be able to see your letter grade. So if I make a 92 on my histology exam, I'm going to be able to see that I made the 92, but on the transcript, it's going to show up as pass or fail. They do use our actual scores though in order to rank us internally, especially when they're deciding who's going to be AOA by fourth year. They do need to see our exact scores for that. But as far as like what residency programs are going to see on our transcript, it's just going to be pass fail. So that is a good thing. So let me also give you a quick breakdown of what this 1.5 year curriculum looks like. So our curriculum is broken down into blocks, and there's 6 blocks total of our preclinicals. So the first block is just gonna be like our basic foundational science. You're gonna get a lot of biochemistry, lots of histology, lots of embryology. So you're just gonna get the basics, foundation of what you need to know in order to move forward. Our second block, so each of our blocks are about two months long. Our second block, that's the second part of our scientific foundations, with the addition of immunology, rheumatology, dermatology, and infectious disease. So that's the block where we learned about all our immuno and micro. That was the heavy part of the block. And then in between we have like OSCEs, and we'll have like a week break and consisting of intersession where we learn about things like race and medicine, health disparities, nutrition, patient health, genetics. Third block was cardio, renal, and respiratory. So they tried to make it so that the blocks, all the topics that we're learning in the blocks kind of relate to each other. So it's not like you're gonna be learning renal and learning about the brain and then learning about biochemistry like in one block. They tried to make it so that it makes sense. So cardio, renal, and respiratory all kind of went hand in hand with each other. And then after that, block 4 was GI, reproduction system, and endocrine system. Block 5, oh yeah, and then we have our summer break. And then the next year, which is M2 year, you're gonna start off with block 5. So that would be the musculoskeletal system, the heme, head and neck, and special senses. And then we have our OSCE and our intercession in between. And then right after that is block 6, which is the block that I'm currently in. Our last block is going to be consisting of the central nervous system and psychiatry. And you start studying for STEP. So our dedicated STEP period time, they technically give us like almost 10 weeks off, honestly, but you're supposed to use like the first 2 weeks for Christmas break and just to, you know, recharge, whatever. And then they recommend taking 6 weeks off maximum to study for STEP. I'm personally probably going to take 6.5 weeks just to, you know, have that little cushion. But I do plan on taking a vacation both before and after for mental health reasons. After STEP, you have your 6 weeks, take STEP by February, and then they're going to start preparing us for the wards, and we will ultimately start our rotations in March. I'll talk about life outside of school. Georgetown itself, it's kind of like a little community within DC. I would say Georgetown is more on the bougie side. Like, you're not really gonna get a lot of like club, like fun or whatever, especially as like a minority student. If you really wanna like see other minorities, and see like how diverse how diverse DC really is, you wanna go to DC. Georgetown is like a very small part of DC. There's things to do, as you know, like DC is a very political place, so you could go to the Lincoln Memorial. There's so many different museums around here. The African American Museum is beautiful. That was like one of the first notable places that I was able to go to when I first got to DC. You can see the White House. There's lots of clubs, honestly. M Street is really, really popular. There's all types of different like streets. Plenty of great restaurants around here. As far as housing goes in DC, I was living in a studio during my M1 year, and I just recently actually moved into a 1-bedroom. I will say housing in DC, it's so expensive. Like, I'm from Texas, and everything in Texas was just reasonably priced, like as far as housing and just everything. But you are gonna be in for a rude awakening just moving into the East Coast, just because everything is so expensive. It took me a while to find a reasonably priced apartment. I wouldn't even say the apartment that I'm in is reasonably priced, but just know that if you plan on living alone, which I mean, some people do opt to do, like I live alone just because I don't like the distraction of having a roommate, especially during something like medical school where I constantly have to spend time alone in peace and quiet and study. You will be paying at least $1,500 a month on I wouldn't even say a big sized apartment. If you're lucky, you might find that in DC, like somewhere, but if you really, really want to find a decent sized apartment for that price, I would suggest living in Arlington, Virginia, which is where I live. Some people, I'm sure, live in Silver Spring, Maryland, but you also don't want to be too far from the school. I only live like 12 minutes from the school, so Arlington, Virginia was perfect for me. What do you wish you knew but you only recognize in hindsight about your school? Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. Georgetown is a PWI, so as a minority, as a brown-skinned person, you will find yourself in uncomfortable positions every now and then. It's a class of 209 students, and in my class in particular, there are only 11 Black students, and so we all really do have to stick together. It's not really something that I put too much thought into before I applied here, because, you know, I've gone to PWIs my whole life, but I think in medical school it gets a lot worse. It's almost like the percentage of Black students just gets smaller and smaller the higher you go up in your education. So it's just something that you have to be aware of and prepared to be in the middle of, because, you know, it's kind of, you have no choice, I guess. But there's lots of support systems for us. I feel like Diversity and Inclusion Office has been really good to us. I've personally gone out of my way to find mentors, especially since I'm aiming for dermatology. I found a lot of Black dermatologists that have been able to mentor me for the past year, and I think that them, along with joining the Student National Medical Association, that's where I met most of the Black students in my class. You just kind of have to go out of your way, and eventually you'll find so many people who look like you. I think DC overall is a very diverse place, but you do, like, if you go to school in a place like Georgetown, you do have to kind of navigate your way through in order to make sure that you're comfortable in a space like that. Some advice / shameless plugs. I mean, it's not really, like, my advice that I'm about to give is not necessarily school specific, but I will say live life, okay? Like, don't let medical school consume you, because I think that's something that I made the mistake of doing my first year. I think I missed out on a lot of social activities and a lot of relationships because I tended to focus so much on studying, because I thought that the only way to make A's on everything was just, you know, to say no to everybody whenever they wanted to hang out, you know, and eventually people are gonna stop asking you to hang out because they're like, well, she's gonna be busy, so let me stop asking. Find balance in medical school. Not everything is about studying. I promise you, you can still do well on your exams and still, you know, go out for drinks once in a while. I personally try to go out at least once a week just for my sanity. It gets so lonely in medical school, especially now that we are doing everything virtually. You don't really get to see people a lot of the time. So making time for yourself, making time for your friends especially, and your family is just number one. Exercise. Just don't let school consume you is basically what I'm trying to say. Like, maybe the first few months of medical school, you're trying to get adjusted, so you don't really want to go out too much or like party or whatever, but like have fun. Honestly, you only have one life to live, and once you figure out like what study pattern works for you, adjust your schedule and make time for other people and other things. Just remember that, and you will be fine your first year of medical school, your second year, and your third year, and beyond. All right, so I have to go study. Thank you guys so much for listening.
The more I do this, the more impressed I get, and the more I wish there was something like this when I was applying to medical school. To Adaora, thank you, thank you, thank you. Myself and everyone watching this video sincerely appreciates you for doing this. If you enjoyed this video and you liked what you saw, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn that like button blue. To everyone who wants to connect with Adaora, her contact info will be at the bottom, along with her page, Medical Milestones, where she puts you on game and gives you tidbits and hints and advice on how you can succeed in your journey through medicine and to medicine. So thank y'all for doing this. Till next time.